Welcome to another episode of Roll or Die. We have another repeat guest for you today on the show. He was on about 2 years ago, I think about this time, 2023. And we said at that time we would get him back on because this guy's an OG of the OGs. He's got black belts in so many martial arts, I can't even list them all. But we're going to talk to him today about his Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and also talk a little bit more about his journey with men's mental health, which we touched on a little bit in the last episode. He is a third-degree black belt at Combat Academy, also known as Rayoma BJJ. He's the owner of Ivan Rakitic Therapy, and he is our friend, Ivan Rakitic. Thanks for joining us, Ivan.
Thanks, Kim. Thanks, Brent. Thanks for having me. I think I'm freezing, but I'm here.
Nah. And when we say freezing, if you're watching on YouTube, he might have been really still for 3 seconds. but he's in Melbourne. He could also be freezing his ass off. You don't know.
And it was probably an ugly face too, right? I'm like, I feel like this frozen and whatever. But there it is.
Yeah, there it is. There it is. I think most people listen to us not much, so we should be safe.
Perfect.
What did Mum say? Be careful what faces you pull because the wind might change and you'll stay that way, right?
Hey man, it worked, right? Here I am.
Ivan, we've been chatting a little bit before the podcast, and straight away, mate, you've got me smiling and laughing and feeling absolutely at ease.
Awesome.
Give us one thing that you do with people that puts them at ease with you, because you've obviously got that skill straight away, and that obviously plays into you helping people with mental health.
Be a really good listener, Brent. I think that's one of the... Look, people talk about listening, but it's being an active listener and being non-judgmental. When you get rid of those biases, especially with being judgmental, you start to hear things a lot clearer. You start to empathise with people much better, and you start to see things from their perspective rather than your perception and the way that you're feeling. So if I was going to lay anything out for you guys and, everyone that's listening, I'd say, being an active listener and, again, like I said, being non-judgmental. And once those filters sort of drop, then you start to see things from the other person's point of view, and then you start to have a better understanding of people, and from that, clarity starts to come through. And when you have clarity, the confusion starts to dissipate, and then you can start to, you build this connection, you build this rapport with people, and being honest, sometimes being honest, you have to be a little bit more frank and forthright. And then other times, you've got to do it in a subtle way as well. So there's many factors, guys, but, those are the two things that I think it'd help people, whether it's in relationships, whether it's, in work, whether it's, like security, whatever. You'll go further with that type of an attitude, I believe, because it's helped me. So
yeah. So we normally start with the martial arts side of things, the jiu-jitsu side especially, but let's go down this path because, like I said last time, we touched on it a little bit, but we didn't really go much into detail into the mental health. How did you get into that side of things?
Oh, God, Kim, I'll do my best to give you the abbreviated version, right? So I hooked up with a gentleman called Tom Paddy. Tom Paddy was, or is, one of Mike Tyson's best friends. And I wanted to learn D'Amato-style boxing. So, I contacted Tom. We started, doing Zoom links. I was sending him videos of Zach and I, my son, training. Tom was correcting us, giving us insights. And to cut a long story short, and I'll do my best to condense this, he said, read this book. It was one of Mike Tyson's books, but everyone sort of contributed to it. And there was a part that came up that was how Cass used to take the fighters to a hypnotherapist. And way back when I was like 18, 17, I had an interest in hypnosis, had an interest in, psychology, all of that type of thing. And I got to this part in the book and I'm like, oh, wow, it rekindled my interest again. And, it was funny. The next day, or the next evening, I walked out onto the balcony and I wanted to get out of security work. And I was like, what am I going to do with my life? I'm sick of the fights, the violence, the arguments, all of that sort of thing. And I was like, what am I going to do with my life? And that thought entered my mind about hypnotherapy, about being a therapist, about studying that and going down that path. And that's the shorter version of it, So that sort of got me started, on this path of therapy, and that sort of led into more the men's side, rather than just like a generalist. But hang on, what are the issues and things going on with the blokes, because unfortunately there's so many things with men that are going on, but blokes tend to keep it to themselves. I can handle this. I can get through it. I don't need anyone. No one cares. No one wants to listen to me whining. I mean, all that sort of stuff that, I've been trying to change because I know how much it's helped me, So, that's the shorter version anyway.
Was that a formal qualification? So with your study, was it a formal qualification that you went out and did? Because I know that there are different paths, let's say hypnotherapy. I know there's different ways to teach hypnotherapy and those sorts of things. Was it a formal qualification you chased with that?
Yes. I studied with a couple of gentlemen from Canada. Then I sort of went to the guys in UK. Then to get qualified, I had to do an Australian version and get insurance.
Yep.
Then I caught up with a guy in South Australia who's an incredible conversational therapist. And of recent times, guys, I caught up with. I'm more a practical guy than a theoretical guy. So I did what I had to do with the book work.
Yep.
But to give you an example, I'm currently in touch and working with a psychiatrist from the UK who worked in, what was the prison's name? Parkhurst Prison, which is maximum security prison in the UK. And he's 87 years old now. Right. And he's been educating me on how and what he did inside the prison system. Now, to give you guys an idea, Dr. Bob Johnson, his name is, he worked with serial killers, every sort of crime that, sort of comes up. And he was there for 5 years. And the last 3 years of his tenure, no alarm bells were rung. There was no prisoner on prisoner violence. There was no prisoner on guard violence. So something he was doing changed their behaviour. Now I saw this and I went, I have to learn from this guy. I have to meet up with him. So every week we get on Zoom and I invited some other therapists, friends of mine, some ladies, and we get on and we have discussions and, and throw things at him. And it's very, very interesting, his approach and what he does. So that's sort of where I'm at currently, where I started. And he's a psychiatrist. He's got all of the letters under the alphabet at the end. And he's a practical guy too, and very fascinating guy. Yeah. And that, mind you guys, that was the worst. When I say worst, that wing of the prison was the hardcore guys. They were like the serious, serious dudes. So you can imagine the last 3 years he was there, nothing. So I'm like, hang on a minute. How did he change this behavior? What was he doing? And that's where it started, with him. So that's where I'm at currently. So, yeah.
And was that with hypnotherapy that he did the majority of that, or how did he make some of those changes?
That's really interesting, Kim. His methodology is going back to the childhood. A lot of it is the childhood. There's a lot of, backwards and froze. But some of these men have had such horrific childhoods, and those things are imprinted in those first 7 years of, a young age. And then a lot of it comes out as revenge, comes out as self-harm, harming others. But what they're actually doing is like beating up like this mental footprint that was instilled at them from a young age. And that's sort of along his methodology of what we tend to work with, without getting into all the detail of it,
Yeah.
My wife will be listening to this podcast for sure, because this is right up her alley and something that she talks about and actually works in that space a fair bit. And one of the things that that I know that she talks about, because she obviously, everything that she talks about with clients is confidential, but when her and I are talking about these sorts of things, one of the things that comes to mind as you're talking about these people in prison is quite often it seems that even though you're a 24-year-old committing robbery, it's the 5-year-old child in you that's making these decisions. Is that correct, Ivan? Is that sort of what you've sort of been hearing and listening to and found?
Yeah, definitely. According to Dr. Bob, I mean, these things, they're the footprints that, that are in the mind, and it comes out in different ways. But once you go to those causes and you start to address them, the behavior starts to change. And people have these self-realizations, like, is this why this was happening? They're like aha moments of self-reflection, moments of self-realization. There's actually a psychiatrist that I'm really fond of, and his name was Dr. Milton Erickson, and he passed away in like 1980. But one of the things that he said was his patients came in with the problem, but they also came in with the answer.
Yeah.
So if you start digging underneath the layers, you start to get to those root causes. And the thing is, it's like, but there's so much to that in itself, guys. Not only do they consciously have to trust you, but unconsciously they have to want to open up.
Yep.
Now, when you've got so many heavy things deep down inside, and then you put other things on top of it, it could be alcohol, could be drugs, could be whatever attitudes, and that's all pressed down and suppressed, it's a very scary thing to start to open that, to start to, not so much for me, but for them to start to look at.
Yep.
And you've got to do it gently. You can't just go bang, because to them, it's like a 200-foot drop, this fear, because they're looking at this figment of their imagination of their father towering above them. And, mum and dad were their survival mechanism, and all of a sudden dad's doing crazy things. Some of the stories, guys, hanging kids over bridges, and you wouldn't believe it. It's not nice, But then you get, then it comes out in different ways. So it's interesting, fascinating, heartbreaking. But, if you can help someone have a look at themselves and that transformation begins, it's the best feeling on earth, guys. I promise you.
On a personal story, before Kim asks her next question, nowhere near that sort of level, right? But I know what happens when you're a kid and you hear things or you get told things or somebody says something to you. I remember when I was a kid, my sister and I and one of her friends we were in our lounge as a well, the three of us, and my sister's putting on records back in the day, obviously. And we were listening to this ABBA song, and her friend are just dancing. And look, age-wise, I mean, I could have been 7 and shit. They could have been 10, right? So there's about 3 years difference. And I'm a 7-year-old boy dancing, and my sister's like, "What are you doing? You can't dance. Like, go away, you idiot," sort of thing. And so I'm like, straight away in my head, I'm like, "Oh shit, I can't dance." Okay, and that basically lived with me forever, right?
Yes.
And then, similar to you, like I've done a wee bit of work on myself and these sorts of things, and in a moment where we were talking about this in this group, that actually came to mind because we were at a retreat. working on ourselves, lights were out, music was on, and then the instructor was kind of like, just move your body. Just like, you don't have to dance, just move your body. And I'm like, oh, well, I can't dance, so I might as well leave the room.
Yeah.
And it was this realization to me. I'm like, well, why can't you dance? And it's like, oh, shit. I remember when my sister told me I couldn't dance. So, like, I made myself go back in the room and just move my body. And we walked out of there, and I basically danced my way back in the rain in Fiji back to my room, right? Now, look, I still cannot dance. Like, that did not magically make me have the ability to be Michael Jackson out of the dance floor. But now I just don't care, and it's like something so innocent that we get told really can affect us in these very deep ways. But I never knew that until I kind of I did some work on myself and got some help and those sorts of things, Ivan. So I can really see what you're talking about with that and how important it is to get some help and to be open to help too.
Yeah. Brent, what a great example. The same thing happened to me with traditional Croatian dancing. I was this, little 7-year-old kid dancing around. The older girls were like, oh, look at him, isn't he cute, type of thing. And we're doing the traditional dances. This older boy, he said, oh, he can't dance. Right? What do you think happened to me?
Yeah.
Stop, refused.
Yeah.
And I'll give you guys one other example. And there was how important teachers are. Yeah. So I was in primary school. This goes along the same lines. And the teacher, like, we're doing, like, say, 32 divided by, 76 or something. And I went back 2 or 3 times trying to get the sum right. And the teacher berated me. He was like, that's not right. I showed you how to do it, blah, blah, blah. After that, guys, I hated maths.
Yeah.
Because I was young, suggestible, especially at that age, you're like an open book,
Yeah.
And someone in authority berates you like that, it affects you. After that, it was my mission. Oh, my goodness. I feel sorry for my high school teachers. If I ever see them, I've got to apologise to them, guys, because honestly, I was terrible. When it came to maths, it was like, oh, no. But that behaviour led back to that one incident as a child. And, all these speed bumps in our lives, when you start to look at them and address them and smooth them out, your life is so much easier. It's happier. I'm the happiest I've ever been in my life, guys, right now. And it's taken a long time. But because I address those things, and it's ongoing, but that's cool.
Hey, Kim, can I tell one more story?
Yeah.
Sorry,
go for it.
Because
it's like a therapy session in itself.
Mate, I need this. And this is legit on the back of exactly what you just said, Ivan. And I don't think I've told this on this podcast, but I know I told it the other week, actually. So the same thing, I was at primary school. And I was at primary school in the 70s in New Zealand. And all of our information that we got back then, obviously there's no Google, but we had the Encyclopedia Britannicas, right? And that was like a 24-volume set of books that had, all of the information in the world basically in it. So I did a school project, and it would have been primary school, I'm sure. And I did my project on a 3-toed sloth. So I loved animals when I was a kid. And I found this thing that was called a 3-toed sloth. So I thought, I'm going to do my project on that. So I did it. I took so much time. I drew a little sloth, and I wrote all the information, and I handed it in. And I was so proud of what I'd done. It was the first time I put work and effort and energy into something for school. And my teacher read it, and she looked at me and she said, oh, you've made this up. There's no such thing as a 3-toed sloth. And I'm like, wait, number one, I'm actually not a creative person at all. So I couldn't have made this shit up. And number two, I'll go home and I'll bring the encyclopedia in to show you. So I went home and I couldn't find it. And because I was just going through the encyclopedia, right? And I just found the thing, and I went, that'll do. So when I was trying to find the work that I had on this three-toed sloth, I didn't know where to find it. So I was looking up the number 3. I didn't know if it was under sloth or if it was like THREE3. But I couldn't find it, so I couldn't take it back to school to show it to her. But
Yeah.
it really felt like that was more or less the last time I really put time and effort into something at school. It's so interesting, these sorts of things.
Isn't it, Brent? And then it's like your trust and everything else you start to question everything within yourself. You start to have doubts. And it starts to come out in behaviors.
Mm.
Right? But then it's like I said, you follow this trail, and where it goes back to could be an incident like that. And that could affect your whole academic journey, you know? And it's unfortunate. That's why I think teachers, they have to have a certain temperament.
Yeah.
If they don't, maybe you should look at a different profession. And I'm saying that with all due respect and everything else. If you get highly stressed, easy, you haven't got patience for someone, you don't know how to approach it from a different angle and explain it, maybe it's not the profession that you should be in, because these young minds, I mean, we've just given a few examples, and hopefully people out there will recognize things within themselves too, that'll get the cogs turning. So, yeah.
Yeah, as a parent, I mean, definitely, it's for sure that you can stuff up, quite a bit
Yeah.
of your kids. You're a dad as well, Ivan, and I think since we last spoke, you've graded your son to black belt. Can you
Yeah.
tell us a little bit about that?
See, Daydreamers, they're in a band. That's
Wow.
both Zach and Jordan. So
Yeah.
I've got to get the plug in.
Yeah, please do. Yeah.
But yeah, I'm so proud of both my sons. My second son, Jordan, he sort of started later in jiu-jitsu. And he's helped me every week with privates. And he's doing classes as well. He's a blue belt now. And Zach, his journey has just been ongoing since, he's my oldest. And I graded him at the age of 24 to his black belt. And I think I waited probably about 6 years too long. But, this is the thing, guys. You just want to, I don't know, you're probably hardest on your own, and Zach was ready way back, Look, he's not really a competitor. I wanted my kids to be able to defend themselves, but not really go into too many comps, things like that. But God damn, he gives me hell. So, he's all right. And he knows what I want him to know, which is simple jiu-jitsu done exceptionally well, and the self-defense side of it, which is my passion, So that's what I want them to know, and my students. And then if they choose to compete, man, go for it, enjoy. So
How do you find the crossover between your mental health work and then having people in the gym? Do you find how much of a benefit is jiu-jitsu to mental health that you see? Because obviously that's a big field that you work in. You obviously work in both. But how much do you see jiu-jitsu being like an antidote to mental health?
huge. Yeah, I'll say it like this. It's huge, but it's not. So there's a contradiction, and I'll explain myself. If you go to jiu-jitsu, you get to vent a lot of, excess energy, sometimes your aggression. If you're a bit timid and withdrawn, it can draw you out. So for those reasons, guys, unbelievable. But at the same time, there's still deeper things there that should be addressed or need to be addressed. I mean, you just have to look at your own personality. Am I too extroverted? Am I too introverted? Do I like getting in confrontations and conflicts, whether verbal or physical? Am I a controlling person? Am I too dominant? Am I too submissive? Do I cross boundaries? and I'm too friendly with everyone, you know? So there's so many facets to a personality. But at the end of the day, we just want to be balanced, you know? And jiu-jitsu helps with all of that. But at a deeper level, my humble opinion, explore. And look, meditation, guys, you know, and self-observation, that can help you a great deal. It helped me a lot.
Yeah.
But sometimes you need the right person to intervene where you sort of don't want to go, or you don't know how to explore those areas in your own mind, you know? So I guess that's the answer. It's jiu-jitsu has helped me enormously. Martial arts helped me enormously, but I still had things going on that needed to be addressed. And until I got into this industry, and I had and have sessions with my colleagues all the time, you know, and it was weird at the start, right? Because first you're just practicing on each other, but then it becomes real. Like, I'm really talking about some deep personal things here. And all of a sudden, you know, a month or two later, you just notice that, hey, I'm happier. This isn't stressing me out as much. Like, and then you start to go, hang on, you put the pieces together, you know, and you go, I think it was because of that. And, you know, it's similar, like you might eat something 12 hours earlier and now you've got a stomach ache, but you don't relate it. You know what I'm saying? So, and then I just started to realize how healthy it was for me to address these things. And like I said, I'm the happiest I've ever been in my life, you know? So it's doing some good things, as well as jiu-jitsu, as well as the other side, right?
I've done a little bit of homework on you, Ivan. A little birdie told me that you used to ride motorbikes,
Yeah.
but your wife made you stop because you kept falling off.
Hey guys, I'll tell you what, I don't know. When am I going to grow up? You know, that's the thing too, right? Like, I've got a bike now, but I gave it a rest for a few years. So you know, I've been riding bikes since I was like 12, I think, dirt bikes. Dare I say, running from the police. You know, because I had to get the bike to where I was riding, right? So there was a lot of fun there too, you know. Thank God I didn't hurt myself or anyone like that. But not long ago, I had a what was it, a KTM 500? This is about 5 years ago, and I thought I'd relive my youth. So I find dirt tracks, and you know, I was just going berserk. You know, just you know, making my own tracks, going over jumps, and then this was sort of, you know, one of those epiphany moments when you go, oh, what the hell are you doing? So I was going around this little berm and I thought I'd use it as a little jump. And as I went up it, my hand slipped on the throttle. The bike took off. I'm hanging behind it like Superman. I let go of the bike. It nearly goes into a barbed wire fence.
Oh.
I land flat on my knees, sort of rolling on the ground, you know, like, I'm trying to be a tough guy and hide the pain. And then I was like, you know what? Maybe I should sort of stop this for a while. So, you know, that was, but I'm back on him again. So touch wood. You know, I'll just be the grandpa now, you know, and just do the speed limit and behave myself, and we'll see how we go.
This little birdie did also tell me, Ivan, that you used to have hair. Is that true?
I did have hair. It was down here. I did. Hey, guys, look, it started getting thinner up here, right? And I'm like, I'm hanging on. And then I went, you know what? Just bite the bullet, take it off. You know, I'm like, but I used to love my hair. Look like a rock star and all of that stuff. Not that I was, but, you know. And then I was like, I can't be one of those dudes that sort of, it starts from here and goes back. And so I'm like,
yes.
You can't be one of those dudes, mate. You can't be one of those dudes. No one can be one of those dudes.
Like that or like that.
The Kevin Bartlett came over. So your boys with the Daydreamers, mate, are you
Yes.
also a musical person? Like, did they get that from you? Like,
Yeah.
you obviously are an accomplished person, and whether it's all of your black belts that you've had, jiu-jitsu side of things, the mental health side of things, you obviously apply yourself very, very well when you find something that you want to be good at. Did you do musical stuff, and how did you find, or how do you find learning? How does learning work for you?
What a great question, Brent. Yes, musical, yes. Both my wife and I, we love music. Um, I when I was 12, I wanted to learn how to play guitar. I was in a country town. I didn't know how to tune a guitar, anything like that. And I sort of, as you would, you haven't got a teacher, you struggle, you're not sure how to do things. Then I bought and it's out of tune and, just a cheapy thing. Mid-20s, tried again, and then it sort of flopped out again. And then probably in my early 40s, I went, no, I'm gonna dedicate some time to this. I'm gonna, get better at this thing. So I bought a decent guitar, started studying the theory of it, started learning songs. And look, I'm no, Angus Young or anything like that, but I can belt out a few chords and have a bit of fun, and that's what it was for me. It's just I enjoy it, and I'm not doing it, to get out on stage or anything. But the couch guitarist, mate, I rock. I'm that couch guitarist.
Perfect.
But one of the things that I wanted the kids to have in their life was music, guys. Music and martial arts, and they picked it up. Like Jordan at the start, I wanted him to be a drummer. And he was like, we'd take him to drumming lessons and he'd just sit there, and I wouldn't be able to stay. My wife was there and all of that. And then one day I pulled him up and I said, look, you don't want to do drums, but you're going to learn how to play an instrument. Pick. So I sort of gave him that, autonomy to choose, but you're going to learn. And my logic was, I make you go to bed. I make you brush your teeth. I make you go to school. I make you do all these things. And later in life, I know that you're going to be grateful about this. So that was Jordan, and he's the bass player in the band now, and very cool. He's the coolest bass player you guys will ever see. You got to come and watch him, right?
Sure.
And please do. You'll have a good night. They're entertaining. And then Zach, he was a lot easier. Zach, and both of them, I would hold them, put Elvis on, and have Poke Salad Annie or something going, and dance with them, and get them moving and singing. And so that's how I got them into music, because I think it's really, really important in your life. Guys, for me, learning, when I love something or I have a passion and an interest in it, it's like the rest of the world disappears and I just zone in. And I don't know if that's always a good thing because you've got responsibilities, but goddamn, man, it's like that hyper focus has helped me a lot, in achieving whatever.
Yeah. You have achieved a hell of a lot in jiu-jitsu, and we're over half an hour in. We've barely talked about it, but so I think there'll be a lot of our listeners like wanting to hear some of the stories from your past, because you were, I think, Peter DeBean's second black belt
Yeah,
after
yeah,
Darren McKean. Yeah, can you tell
yeah.
us a bit about that?
Yeah, Darren was amazing, guys. Like, honestly, this is the days before sort of people were on the internet and stuff like that. And I started with Peter in 95, and Darren was already like, I don't know, he must have been Pete's like first or
Yeah.
one of his first students in the garage days. So he had 5 years up on me. And I never consciously tried to overtake people or anything like that. I loved it. And like I said, that hyper focus, you know. But Darren to me was incredible. He was such a good guy. He always encouraged me. He was always happy to share. And I was always learning from him. He was my senior. He was a blue belt, I was a white belt. And, just really fond days, Kim, with Darren. And he was very creative. He was coming back, and his body type was, he was shorter than me, lighter, but very innovative. So, and it's like today, you guys know it. You can get on the internet and you can look at what someone's doing over the other side of the world, but it wasn't like that back then. We had to think of things ourselves a lot of the times. And honest to God, guys, I'd be up at 4 o'clock in the morning going, twitching, and wide awake, going, how do I nullify this? Or how do I get out of this? Or how am I going to freaking get past Darren's guard? Like, this is 4 a.m. and I can't sleep.
I think every white belt's been through that, to be honest with you.
It doesn't matter what year it is. Yep, they're still doing it.
A purple belt, all right? Forget white belt, purple belt. I'm still like, moving around and all of that. So, but yeah, it was really fun days, Kim, with Darren and all the guys.
I think you were the poster child at Devine. You had your face on the poster. As soon as you walked up the stairs, that was one of the first things you would see, you in like a karate stance.
Oh, cool.
Remember that one?
Yeah, I think maybe because I was teaching karate in St Kilda to help fund to pay to do jiu-jitsu. So, hey, bouncer wages, guys, they aren't the best. So, it was like you got to do what you got to do. So I was sort of teaching karate, and that was my love too, but that was helping fund doing jiu-jitsu. So, yeah.
How did you find jiu-jitsu? So in 95, how did you actually find it?
I actually brought something. Do you guys want to check this out?
For sure.
All right. Because last time I talked about the video, that Gracie Jiu-Jitsu in action video.
Yep.
I don't know if you guys will be able to see it, but this is the original. Hang on. That's the original ad. How cool is that?
Gracie Jiu-Jitsu in action, special offer, real fights, original footage. There you go. Check that out. Jump on the YouTube. This is why you should watch it on Instagram or YouTube, because I haven't come up with this cool stuff to see.
What's that? Whose signatures are they?
Video.
All right, that's the original VHS video, and it was Helson signed it for me and Hickson signed it for me.
Wow,
that's amazing.
There it is in there. I don't know.
Kids today won't know what that is.
Just hold that up. And
no, the tape.
Oh, the tape.
Yeah.
So kids, this is called a VHS tape, and we used to hire these from a video store, and if you didn't rewind it, you would get fined for not rewinding it.
Yes.
Very true, man. We did, man.
Bit of history.
Yeah.
So, did I answer your question? I don't know what the question was, but
no, the show and tell was beautiful. But how did you find jiu-jitsu? Like,
did you look it up in the yellow pages?
Yeah, like jiu-jitsu was such a niche thing. It was probably brand new, and for me, if somebody said to me in 1995, like, "Hey, do jiu-jitsu," I'm like, "No, man, karate beats that every day." Growing up in the 80s, where karate was king, you know, like that was what we were sort of taught. So, how did you find jiu-jitsu?
That video, guys, or that magazine, so that magazine's like 1989.
Wow.
So I was doing karate and I was teaching in Hampton, and I saw the ad, got the video, that actual videotape that I showed you guys, and because I was into it, and I went, wow, these are real fights. Sorry if I'm freezing.
No, you're okay.
You're good.
Right. Yeah, and I went back to the karate school, guys, and I said, I grabbed one of the other students and I said, man, let's roll around on the ground. You've got to see this stuff. All excited, about what I'd seen. And he, poor guy, somehow I managed an armbar. I don't even know how I did it, It was the biggest fluke, guys, I swear to God. And, so that's how it sort of started. And then I went to judo And because there was no jiu-jitsu, this is like 1990, right? And I think Peter was in Torquay. And so I went back to judo because that was the closest thing that I could find. And I was forever saying to him, let's do Niwaza, let's get on the ground. Like, you guys don't understand what I've seen, you know? And they're like, no, tachiwaza, stand up throws and all that. And I'm like, no, let's get on the ground, you know? And but that was sort of where it sort of started, you know, with jiu-jitsu. And then, forgive me, and then 95, I think it was, Peter brought out Carlos Gracie Jr., and they did a seminar at the YWCA in Elizabeth Street. That's where I first met Peter. And I got to grapple with Carlos Gracie and Gordo. So that was very cool. Sorry, I've got this thing on my screen. Yeah, so I got to grapple with Carlos, and that was great. And Gordo was there, and I think it was Marcinho, Fatosa. And so that was sort of the beginning of the journey from that point.
And through the years, Ivan, you've also trained with people like Hoist Gracie and Anderson Silva. Is that right? Can you tell us a bit about that?
With Hoist, I met Hoist in 2003, and he was the one, guys, that sort of opened my eyes that there's more than what I was doing or practicing, which is what I wanted more of, which was more of the self-defense side of jiu-jitsu, because I was bouncing, getting into scuffles, fights, and ending up on the ground, and that was more akin to what I was after. And, all of a sudden we're doing these self-defense techniques that I hadn't seen before, because Pete had a different vision. And it's been an amazing thing that he's created. I was there at the start when he was beginning all this. And but for me personally, I was after the self-defense side of things, you know. So I met Hoist in 2003. And then from there, we started hosting him, went around Australia with him, training with him, doing privates with him. So it was great. We hosted a bunch of other guys, Vanderlei Silva. We hosted Chuck Liddell, Sean Shirk, Bus Rutan. Bus was amazing. But with Anderson, it was actually a buddy of mine, Mark Castanini, who hosted Anderson, and I just got to meet him and hang out with him and, partner up with him in the seminar. So, but he was my favourite MMA fighter, so that was cool,
What year did you get your black belt, Ivan?
2006.
Yeah.
So coming up to 20 years soon.
I know, it's crazy, yeah. And then travel. Has jiu-jitsu taken you overseas?
Guys, I was set to go overseas to compete at the Worlds as a blue belt because I had a sponsor. Yep. And the sponsor pulled out. At that time, I had young family. I was bouncing, and it was like they're the priority, right? Yep. And I wasn't making enough dollars, in all honesty, to get overseas. I was a young family, mortgage, all of that stuff. And I just didn't get the opportunity to go, But it was, guys, I'll share this story with you because hopefully it'll encourage more of the Aussies, I remember I was a purple belt, and like I said, I didn't have the financial resources to get overseas. And but there was two Brazilian guys that came over, and they might have actually been the first Brazilian guys that competed at the Pampax and that. I think it was the Pampax. And I was a purple belt. They were purple belts. And I went up against them. It was a good day for me. I beat both of them. But I was so happy, guys, because it validated what Pete was teaching us. Yeah. It wasn't like I was winning. It was like we're all winning. Like all of Australia was winning. And it it was like we can hang out with the Brazilians, you know. This is like their art. But we can do this, you know. And I was so happy, and I was really happy for Pete. I was proud that I did well that day, because they were, you know, it was sort of their game. But we can do it too, you know. So for any of the young guys that are out there and girls that are competing, man, you can do it. You can do it. You just got to believe in yourself and work hard, you know.
I think on that, Ivan, like we see it with some of the like the top level athletes. So like obviously Adele is just tearing it up in the ladies scene at the moment, which is so cool to see and so good to watch. But aside from that, seeing people go over and compete at the adult world or Brasileiros or even the World Masters, you know, and we see the Australians going over and getting to the top of the podiums, you know, in different divisions. It really is good. And for a place that is so far away from the mecca of jiu-jitsu being, you know, America and Brazil, really, like we do hold our own so well. And I agree, Ivan, if you can get over and compete overseas somewhere, make it happen, you know, like have it as a goal. It doesn't have to be every year. If you can do it every year, good luck, and that's amazing. But to get over and actually do it, you'd be surprised how well our jiu-jitsu stacks up against people overseas. They're not light years ahead of us, you know. I think where the Australian scene is, and we're so lucky because we've got, you know, amazing athletes, we've got amazing coaches, and the knowledge is so good now in Australia as well, I feel. I really believe we can hold our own and take a lot of those top podium spots.
Yeah.
We can.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. You know, why not? You know, why not? You just got to believe in yourself. You got to work hard. You got to devote time to it. Train smart.
Yeah.
You know, and because it's like you said, just because we're further away from America or from Brazil, it doesn't mean we've got two arms, two legs, got a mind, strong mind. You know, so you know we can do it.
Yeah.
You know, I'm first to put my hand up for all the Aussies out there, and if you have the resources to get over there, absolutely do it. You know, I'll give you guys an example. I didn't compete, but 2015, I went to America, and it was meant to be a holiday, but everywhere I went, I was grappling. And finally, I got to Miami, and you know, I got the family with me, and like I was talking about those epiphanies earlier, I had this epiphany where it was like, shit, we're about to go on a boat cruise. What happens if I get injured? I'm going to ruin the whole holiday, you know? And mind you, I was at Henzo Gracie's in New York. I was at Rob Follis's in Vegas, and my buddy Sydney Silver at his academy, rolling with him. I was at the Gracie Academy in Torrance, California. Man, it was like wherever we went, I was rolling, you know? And then by the time we got to Miami, I was going to go to Helion Gracie's. And then I sort of put the brakes on and went, uh-oh, you know, what happens if I get a dislocated shoulder or my knee or whatever, you know? I'm going to wreck the whole family holiday because I could be in a hospital. So I was like, all right, I got to pull up. But at least I got like, you know, 10 rolls in.
Good. Ivan, we're nearly out of time. It's been really great to chat with you once again. You've given us so much info. Have you got any final words for our listeners?
Final words. Something to help with jiu-jitsu. How's that?
Yes, please.
There's people talk about timing, okay? So to me, timing is the right time that you're leaving your destination to do something, whatever it is. But I don't know if tempo is being addressed enough. So to give you guys an example, when I roll with my son, who's very quick with tempo, the beat will say, I try and slow him down. I try and drown him, if I can say it like that. With someone that's bigger, heavier, slower, do the opposite. Go faster. Make their heart beat a lot quicker, you know? And then from that, perhaps things will come for you and you might get better results. So that's a little tip.
Yeah.
I love it.
Perfect.
And that's something that we can implement straight away. So that's just a mindset thing. So that's perfect, Ivan. I love it.
Yeah.
No
Fantastic.
worries, Brett. I hope it helps someone. Obviously, there's a lot more stuff, but, that's just a quickie.
Perfect. Perfect. All right, we're going to wrap it up there. Kim, you have again outdone yourself with the homework. That's always good. And Ivan, mate, I've really enjoyed this chat. You are a very effervescent person, super open and honest. So I can see why your mental health space that you work in, why you're busy and how you're helping people. So continue down that, please, because I think men's mental health is something that, not that it gets pushed aside because it doesn't, but I think as men, we need to make sure that we are in a place where we can feel free to open up. And I think having people like you around, it's definitely going to help people be able to do that, Ivan. So I definitely thank you for that. But we'll wrap it up there. Remember, guys, please like, rate, and share the podcast around. Do us a favor, jump on YouTube. Even if you don't watch the episode, jump on YouTube and subscribe to the channel. I'm not sure how many followers we have on YouTube, but I want to get that up. So I don't care if you watch it, just jump on YouTube and subscribe, because that would be really cool. And if we
This
can
is a
start
good one to watch, though, this episode. You want to see Ivan's VHS tape and all the other stuff. You want to see.
Yeah. Check out, Check out the signatures on that VHS tape. That's very, very cool. Subscribe, tell your friends, share it with your teammates, and also tag your teammates in these sorts of things too, because I think sometimes every now and again you'll hear something and you're like, I reckon my teammate might really like that. So tag them in these posts too and say, hey, you'll get something out of this, especially with the men's health from today and that little tip at the end. Ivan, I really appreciate it. Thank you, Kim. As always, mate, you're a star coming on and getting all of these amazing guests. You do all the work behind the scenes. I just try to rock up and just talk. So you do all the work, mate, and I appreciate that. I really do. Ivan, thank you so much for coming on. Remember, jump into that gym, go and see him. And if you are having issues or you'd like someone to talk to, I'm sure Ivan could be the person that might be able to help you. So get in touch with him either through this podcast or through his links that he will have. We'll have those in the show notes. We'll finish it there. We appreciate everybody listening. Like, rate, and share. We'll see you on the next episode of Roll or Die.
Thanks, guys.
That was all.